right. Technologically. Okay. Greetings, everyone. Welcome to the Cube of Space, Part 4. And I am going to scoot you guys over a little bit. And then I will bring, okay, bring this one over. Here we are. This will be fun. So we begin. So far on our travels around the cube, and you all have your little cube so you can follow along, we have arrived on and advanced from the west face, which is part 1. We then rounded the northwest edge at the justice card of that face onto the north face. That was part 2. From there, we've traveled through the center of the cube, touching base with the world. One sec, I'm letting Nancy in. So touching base with the world card and briefly encountering our true inner self in the middle of the cube, represented by the Fool card, and then arriving at the south face, part 3. From the south face of the cube of space, we are now rounding the southeast edge at the teacher card onto the east face. So we're heading onto the east face, and there's the teacher card on the east face. So then we'll move from him down, around, and to the center again. All that we have learned through our trials on the previous 3 faces of the cube has prepared us for what we will encounter here on the east face. Our access to the wisdom from our teacher within made it possible. Now you are able to advance further and become a spiritual teacher. Each and every one of us, and I'm going to try and scoot this over just a little further and then allow for us to see the east face as we move along. Let's see if I can make it smaller. Not quite sure. Well, we'll scoot it over here, make us smaller. There we are. So we can travel down the class and see the east face. Now we're able to advance further and become the spiritual teacher. Each and every one of us was blinded on the west face when we arrived through the Wheel of Fortune. And then we encountered the deceiver. It wasn't going well for us. Yet here we are on the east face. We may not make it in a single lifetime, but becoming the teacher is in everyone's future. Here, compassion for ourselves and for others has become an underlying foundation of our personality. So here we sit. Our next stop on the east face is the Chariot. So we're going down to the base here. And that card is found on the edge of east below. The charioteer is the teacher who is fully self-realized, in touch with the higher self and in control of the lower self. I call this the victory card. I really like this card. This card represents the middle way on the tree of life. Here we don't find the extremes of the right or the left columns of the tree. So let's look at that briefly as a reminder. See if I can pull this off. Okay. Sliding is such great fun. Okay, there's your tree of life. So the middle way, here's the planet Earth. And those of you who have the book now have a copy of this. I finally got the coloring correct at the bottom here. And we go up the center, right up the center to the crown. And that's called the middle way. So here we are at Earth, fire, air, earth, and water. We go into foundation, the psychic, more of the psychic elements. We head right up to beauty, which is the light. You could call it the Christ light, but beauty. And as you can see, all of the Sephiroth go and have an attachment to beauty. And then we go straight up until we hit the crown. So this is considered the middle path, also the path of the priesthood. And as you move up it, you do experience the two sides, the opposites. And we have the masculine pillar and the feminine pillar. So that's just a sort of a review of the Tree of Life, a little bit. This card represents the middle way on the Tree of Life. Here we don't find the extremes of the right or the left columns of the tree. That's because we meet here not as bodies, but as spirits. On this level, we have a delightful relationship. It is the inner self in each of us that makes us interesting to each of us. The charioteer is the triumphant rider in the vehicle of personality. The chariot is a summary of all the keys in the first row of the tarot tableau. Those are the principles of the tarot tableau, are the first row, all the way across the top. The magician is our self-conscious directive power. I always call him the doer within you. Self-conscious directive power. The high priestess, it represents memory, a primary attribute of the subconscious mind. The empress reveals the power of our active imagination, which resides in the subconscious mind. So we're moving across the basic principles in the first row. The emperor is our ability to reconstruct our lives so that they are fully in balance with the law of life. Our intuitive faculty is indicated by the teacher. The lover's key symbolizes the keen discrimination necessary to recognize and unscramble all that is taking place in a positive, energetic, and innovative manner within ourselves. And then we arrive at the chariot. The attributes of the chariot card are receptivity and will. The magician's gestures signify that our support comes from that spiritual realm within us. Once we get the message from within, we apply our will. The chariot card is the reward for the magician's efforts. The difference between people is not in the degree of their willpower, like a possession. It is the degree of our ability to express this willpower in our everyday lives. So look at the chariot and the charioteer within it. And remember, will is what you use for discrimination. Your willpower is actually what you decided to eat this morning or not, what you decided to do in the evening. Every time you choose something, you're using your willpower. And if you look at this card, you have the charioteer, and he's holding invisible reins. And here are the two sphinxes. I like, I don't like, I like, I don't like. And they're just resting there, and he is controlling them with his mind. The reins are invisible because he's running the show with his mind, and his mind is where he makes decisions, the decisions where his willpower is expressed. And then you get to see the results of what you decided to do all day long. And also, the use of your willpower is you can set up your next day the night before, if you're aware that this works. And once you become aware of that activity, then you start to sort of get ahead of yourself. Like all those little habits you're into and you'd like to go, oh, well, I'd really like to do something different. Set it up the night before and say, oh, I see myself doing this tomorrow when I wake up. I'm going to open the window and the whole world is there for me. But I don't really, like the emperor, I don't really have to jump into it. I can look at it and decide what I want to do with an objective mind. So there we are. I will repeat, the attributes of the Chariot card are receptivity and will. The magician's gesture signified that our support comes from that realm within us. His right hand is holding up a wand, but it's a hollow wand. So the energy is coming, and whenever we say up in tarot, we mean within. So he's acknowledging his source of power through his wand, and his left hand is pointing at the four elements, fire, air, earth, and water, that are sitting on the table, but he has not picked them up yet. He's just beginning to, and he wears a cloak of red for passion and movement and activity, because otherwise he would, without putting that cloak on, you go nowhere. So you do have to have desires. You just have to understand how to operate them. Once we get the message from within, we apply our will. The Chariot card is the reward for the magician's efforts. The difference between people is not in the degree of their willpower like a possession. It is the degree of our ability to express this willpower in our everyday lives. Underlying premises determine how you express your willpower. Are they correct? Are they accurate? Are they inaccurate? Are they partially accurate? And by expressing yourself and your will and the decisions you make throughout your day and the most mundane things, you get to find out who you are to yourself. So here we have, I just love this Chariot. There you have Arjuna and talking to Krishna. And yes, absolutely wonderful, from the Bhagavad Gita. The two wheels of his chariot reminds us of the revolving wheel of fortune card, but here the charioteer is supported by and moving in harmony with the life power. The cycles of life and death and rebirth actually move him forward on the path of initiation. The two sphinx, I like and I don't like, are under his control by the invisible reins of his mind. Look how quiet they are. My little guy sitting down there, just smiling, happy. His journey is guided by the winged golden disc, the third eye, on the front of the chariot, right down here, you see it. The Kabbalah says the mind moves the body. The Bhagavad Gita says the self is the rider in the chariot of the body, of which the senses are the horses and the mind the reins. There are only three characters in this book, and they are 3 points of consciousness. They are the superconsciousness mind, the conscious mind, the directing mind, and the subconscious mind, the recipient mind that delivers everything your conscious mind has thought up. So all you have to know is you're living in mind and you're working mind by your choices. And you want to have a happy, peaceful life. You really do. Excitement is great. Excitement tells you you're evolving. Excitement means you've been sitting in one little place too long. And when excitement enters your life, whether it's good or bad, it means you're moving on. We call that sacred chaos. So whenever there's chaos in your life, you go, oh, joy, I'm growing, I'm evolving. The human race is evolving through me. Yeah, just keep your fingers closed so you don't burn them or anything, but get with the program. So his wand is crowned by the moon and the figure 8. That's right up here. So let's look back at him. There's the wand, the moon, and the figure 8. And that represents the sacred stylus of Thoth and the power and the ability to bring into being the sacred words of spirit. As you speak, your word manifests. We are co-creators with God. So be careful what you think about and what you say. It's an expression of your willpower. Here he becomes the teacher who writes the words of guidance so that those who are still trapped in the city, also known as the west face of the cube, will be able to find a way out. The teachings from the inner school given to him on the south face are now given to the rest of humanity. Thank God. Our next step is the emperor on the northeast edge. So we're moving over here. His title means he who sets an order. The Hebrew letter attributed to this card means window, and the sense function is sight. A window is also a vantage point that allows us to survey all of our surroundings and to oversee all that goes on around us. With this vision, we gain supervision and control over our personal universe. It allows us to achieve insight into the realities of creation. So he's looking out with a mind. He's not attached. He's looking from a distance, observing objectively what's going on around him. And that's what allows him to achieve the sight into the realities of creation. If you have all these things muddling around in your head, they cloud what you see. You may not even see it if something in front of you at all that's standing there. But as you organize your life and allow yourself to be quiet within, you will receive more information from creation, which is what we move through and have our being through. So this also allows us to achieve insight into the realities of creation. Through meditation, we're now able to penetrate nature by looking through that which is visible around us, literally, looking through that which is visible around us. Your vision now goes into them, to their source of life. With this new awareness, feelings arise within us, which awaken our 5 inner senses of sight, hearing, touch, taste, and smell. Our spiritual senses are the same senses that we have on a physical level: to see without our eyes, to hear without our ears, to feel without our skin, taste without our tongue, and smell without our nose. To develop this requires looking around you from the perspective of wondering what's going on within what you're looking at. Allow it to be revealed to you. The quality of our vision determines the quality of our lives. Once again, reminding you, keep a lot of miscellaneous thinking quiet in your mind and allow what's around you to speak to you. As you do this more often, because we live in a gentle and loving mind, it will reveal more to you by your interest in it. So you will create a pattern of curiosity that will be fulfilled. Allow it to be revealed to you. The quality of our vision determines the quality of our lives. If what we see around us is based on appearances, then our response to the circumstances of our lives will be short-sighted and dark. Order is achieved with the help of reason, the 2 principal functions of this card. To have order in your life, you must establish order in your thinking. Use your imagination. It is a most powerful tool. So, having passed the tests of the Emperor card, we move on to the Lover's card on the east above edge of the cube. So you're getting an idea of what has to be accomplished by having these various cards on that side of the cube. You arrive, you need to go back and review each one of these cards to find out what it's telling you at that point in that stage in your life. And I will add that you don't need to memorize anything because you already know it. Your inner self knows all this. Thank God. we just have to be quiet and still enough to allow our inner self to teach us. That's the teacher. This whole face is about, there's the teacher. Our stillness is, we learn when we teach ourselves to concentrate on an object and let it speak to us. So our mind starts to get used to being quiet and then only having things occur in it that we want there. It would be very interesting for you to fly a 747 jetliner with just your mind. Wrap your head around that one, because you can do that. But you have to have that stillness, that great stillness. So, having passed the test of the Emperor card, which is orderliness, we move on to the Lover's card on the east above edge of the cube. When I first introduced you to the Major Arcana Tarot cards, I told you that it was a book about life and that there were only 3 characters involved in the story. I also mentioned that those 3 characters were all found within you. So we're not talking, when we talk about the lovers, we're not talking about someone else. We're just talking about yourself. And we are talking about all of these elements are within you. Eve is your receptive mind or subconscious mind, personified by the High Priestess. The Archangel is your superconscious mind, personified by the Fool card. The power to discriminate and perceive differences is rooted in the self-conscious mind. It is entering the awareness of duality, where conditions seem to be real in and by themselves without any underlying cause. Yet they are but a reflection of the one source. Without this ability to create illusions, the individual's self-conscious mind could not exist. So we are living in a state of duality, but all the source of that duality is within us and moves through us. So that can be a little confusing, because how can you be in this world and also be conscious of a higher rate of vibration? And what you do is you train yourself to be quiet, and that consciousness comes to you that you need. In the Book of Tokens is stated, for the sake of creation, the one life that I am seemeth to divide itself, becoming 2. The Creator manifested itself in order to appear to itself. So we're co-creators with creation, with God, whatever term you want to use, the great mind. And it's just looking at itself through us. So the function of the Lover's card is discrimination. As long as we are slaves to appearances, we perceive only unreality. When we awaken from the dream of sense to the inner knowledge of our true nature, we begin to understand reality. The function of the Hebrew letter assigned to this card is smell, a word used to express discrimination. Yeah, sometimes we say, that doesn't really smell right. And what we mean is, it doesn't hold water. Another thing, another interesting comment. So it doesn't smell right, which means, I think it's false. It's kind of, doesn't hold water. It doesn't work. So that's a way to look at the term something, using the term smell as to express discrimination. Here we also have the function of reciprocation. the act of giving and receiving mutually. Reciprocation is a relationship between two different entities. We need to understand the relationship between the self-conscious Adam and the subconscious Eve. I love this photo. I think this is darling. Have some here. They represent two very different aspects of awareness, though when combined, they are the human personality. And then there's the relationship between the superconscious Archangel Michael and the human personality. So there we have this on the lovers. The true self is the Archangel Michael. With all this in mind, we find that reciprocity between opposites, when it is harmonious, is always what we call love. Hate is the inversion of love. Both love and hate are human emotions, but they are also spiritual emotions. This means that they are root emotions and that all other emotions and desires take on the character of either one or the other of them. We as humans are on the path of return, headed back toward unity, a state of balance. Consequently, the force we must employ is the ability to combine into a coherent whole our desires and emotions colored by love. It is a uniting force of great power. We utilize the faculty of discrimination to help us determine and evolve the true color of our emotional life. I remember in the Bible, it said when Jesus sent his disciples out in twos, and they said, well, what do we take with us? And he said, you are protected by love. That is your protection. That is your only protection. You can't be touched. The way to freedom is the way of love. Changes are not brought about by coercion, but through friendly persuasion. Of course, we've talked about the subconscious mind. You don't want to rattle her cage. You want to, by friendly persuasion. Love is unconditional and self-imparting, like sunlight. We don't have to generate love. It exists as a universal principle. So when you're working with your subconscious mind to get it to do what you'd like it to do, be sweet to it, talk nicely to it, persuade it. All we have to do with a universal principle is to let it flow through us. Pairs of opposite are not antagonists, but complements. Thus, the right understanding of the universe shows it to be, in all its details, an expression of the power of love. You could probably put an apple in front of you and go, how are you loving me today? And take a good look at it. How are you loving me today? Talk to creation. It is the right balanced relationship existing between the various pairs of opposites of which the universe is apparently made out. So we're into a balancing act here. We're learning how to balance. It's the middle path of the tree of life, the one I mentioned. The tree behind Adam is the tree of life. Okay, there you've got that, the fires. It's bearing 12 fiery fruits, expressing the 12 signs of the zodiac. The zodiac expresses the 12 personalities of mankind. The tree of knowledge of good and evil stands behind Eve. There you've got the little serpent and the 5 apples. The fruits of the 5 senses are shown as yet untasted. So you've got the 5 senses there. The serpent is lifted up the tree for healing. The serpent represents the power in ourselves that is our very salvation, the Kundalini experience. Adam didn't have a fall. He had an uplifting experience that introduced him into a spiritual world through the agency of his feminine aspect. The apples were delicious and enjoyed by all. Remember that Kundalini runs up your spine. And in the East, they call them chakras. In the West, we call them metals. So that's where you've got lead and all the different metals, mercury, etc. So the idea is to raise up that energy, the nervous system ganglia within your body, without messing up your body, because this is all power, all powerful, each one. So you kind of approach this slowly, safely, because if you overdo it, you may think you're God. And if you underdo it, you may sleep for a few lifetimes and stay on the west face. It's all with the help, as we can see in the Lover's card. There's always somebody assisting. You must have both intelligence and sensation in your life to make it successful. They are equally important, and you should think of them both at the same time. This card is a sacrament in the highest sense of the word because it represents the prolongation of life. Kabbalists have great respect for God, for creation, and for men and women. The Lover's key sets forth this perfected balance between opposing forces. It's an ideal situation. At this point, we come to a crossroads on the east face. Ta-da. One choice is to continue on to the cube face called above. This is the solitary path leading back to God. This path is represented by the golden key on the teacher card. Down here, there are two little keys. This path is accomplished by briefly touching on the Empress card in the center. Here we receive the ecstatic force of love, both physical and divine. Then we return back to the Lover's card at east above. From there, we advance to the above face of the cube, where we find the Magician card at the center. The above face will be covered in the cube of space, part 5. Our other choice is to continue to the Empress card at the center of the east face. There we consciously choose to give up traveling to the next two faces of the cube called above and below. We instead decide to be consciously reborn on the west face to help our fellow man awaken to his spiritual inner self. That's the pathway of the roustabouts. The white brotherhood, those who show up again and say, oh, I'm going to help some people. This is what I want to do. It's just those first 10 or 15 years as a child that are a little hard to get through with all the influences of the mass mind coming from all sides, and then realizing that no, the world is greater than this. Let's look at the Empress card. The Empress has power over all development in the material world. There she sits, green being, of course, as we recall, the color of love in Venus. So she has power over all development in the material world. So remember that development. She is the subconscious mind. She's Eve from the Lover's card. You mustn't ever forget this. Her power is awesome. Put another way, everything in the material world is created through her. So you have the male and the female. They are equal in power and different in function. Equal in power and different in function. And as we go into this new age, the Aquarian age, that's coming out more and more and more. And it's manifesting through the duality of the male and female on the planet Earth. And we're all trying to get used to this, because up until this point, the female, the feminine in our heads, has been subjugated to a secondary position because of not understanding its full function. But once again, you have to back up. We're talking about what's within you and then project it to the male body and the female body. As we get used to understanding that they are equal in power and different in function, because we would be in absolute black darkness, which is the primary color of creation, without the feminine. You can charge up and down. I want this, I want that, but without the function of the feminine, which is manifestation, it would be pitch black. It would be the en sapor behind the tree of life. Nothing is without her. So you understand how to be really sweet to her, and she will give you everything you want. But she gives it to you, even those things that you didn't think you wanted, because you haven't quite got your underlying premises down straight as to what's real and what's not. She is the essence of love and will give you everything you want, need, and desire in order to fulfill her love for you. A function of this card is imagination. So she will not only give you what you desire, but multiply and embroider it, mixing fact with fancy to elaborate the outcome. Just look at her card. She sits on a fancy cube. There's wheat to be harvested at her feet, and she's very pregnant. Very fancy cube. All the other guys are sitting on these little cube blocks, and there she sits. All those little frills and everything else, you know. She's having a good hair day. What can I say? Now that you understand this, what are you? That part of you that's Adam asking her for. What do you think about throughout the day? Where do you focus your mind? What do you listen to with your ears or watch with your eyes? She will take all of that and give it back to you in abundance, with curly cubes and everything else, in ways you couldn't imagine. She is the agency through which your immediate world manifests. Is this where you really want to live? You have to decide. You're using your willpower, and she'll manifest what you want. What are you doing and thinking today that's multiplying itself into your future experiences? Does it serve you, or will it destroy you? Here's where the lessons learned in the Lovers and Emperor cards concerning discrimination, reciprocation, and order come into play. So the lessons learned in the Lovers and Emperor cards concerning discrimination, the use of your willpower, get out your sword and cut away what you don't need, and create order in your life. At this point on the cube of space, you understand all of this. Love is always victorious. On this chosen path of returning to help others, oh, good luck. We travel from the Emperor's card through the interior of the cube, once again, via the Hanged Man card. We go through the door of the World card at the center and enter again on the west face through the Wheel of Fortune. Oh my God, here we go again. This time, as we enter the west face of the cube of space, we become a messenger of light. We are not as we were in previous reincarnations. We now have full knowledge of all that has happened before in our lives. So that reversal card, the Hanged Man, no tricks now. We now know who we are when we arrive. So this is the path represented by the silver key on the teacher card. We immediately ascend to the temperance card on the west face above. So you get to bypass parts of that face. The messenger reaches maturity on the west face and begins to develop the power to illuminate wisdom in others. At the end of the messenger's ministry, the messenger exits the west face via the transition card and enters into the celestial government of the inner planes where the White Brotherhood reside. That sounds like fun. Okay, so there are questions. I understand that all of this is, this is really an overview. It's getting your feet wet, your fingers touching that wonderful light of life. And then having an opportunity to recognize or recognize what's going on the planet, what's going on in your life and on the planet Earth and with you, and learning to be objective when you look at things, people, yourself, even animals and trees and life, become more objective. Don't get so involved with all your preconceptions. It'll go much easier on you. So here we are, 5:42. Let's see. We can go for the next, let's go for the next phase. Let's see how we do. And then we just have one left next week. All I have to do is find a way to move this over. Are we ready to go for the next phase? This should be fun. We won't be at the end, but we will. There we are. We'll do the cube of space part 5. If I can find my little arrow, it's always, okay, where are you? There you are. All right. And go. Move us over. Okay. So here we are, part 5. Parts 1 through 4 of our discussion of the cube of space covered the interior of the cube and the western face, its northern face. We're going to do this quickly. Its southern face and its eastern face. We now leave the eastern face ruled by the Empress and enter the above surface of the cube via the Lover's card. So the above surface of the cube, it's, yeah, there he is. That's that one, the yellow face. Here we encounter 4 cards that we've already touched on as we traveled around the other faces of the cube. They are Temperance, west above. There's my Temperance down there. So we're coming in, yes, we're going around and into the center. Okay. Temperance, west above. Strength, north above. The Star, south below, and the Lovers, east above. At the center of above, we find the Magician. So we're basically on top. That's above, we're at the top. The Book of Formation, in the Book of Formation, the edges, surfaces, and interior of the cube of space were assigned Hebrew letters. So this is a great little book. As you may recall, each Hebrew letter is a number, a letter, and a word. Sounds are identified by symbols called letters. Each of the 22 paths, in this case, the letters, is assigned a sound. God spoke the word of creation. Let's see if I can move this over, pull this on. Okay. The word is sound. We create our world using combinations of sound. The ancient Hindus, with their Sanskrit language, understood this. Needless to say, the ancients understood the power of the spoken word to create and destroy. You have the power over the life and death of creation. You are a co-creator with God. We're just kind of getting up to speed to remembering this. After intense study and meditation, Paul Foster Case, founder of the Builders of the Addendum, BODA, assigned the 22 major arcana cards, which he called keys, to each of the 22 Hebrew letters. And this is a picture of him. A master, great master. We all should honor and thank for all that he has given us. Prior to his work, secret societies would assign tarot cards to the various letters, but in many cases, according to Paul Foster Case, they would include blinds, designations that weren't correct, in order to maintain and protect the secrecy of their doctrines from outsiders. According to the Book of Formation, the faces and the center of the cube are assigned the 7 Hebrew double letters representing changeable forces. Each letter is a pair of opposites and is spoken in 2 ways. Each letter is assigned to a planet. The 12 edges of the cube are made up of the Hebrew single letters, which represent constant forces and strife. These letters are attributed to the 12 signs of the zodiac, each with a definite function, including the 5 senses. I will tell you, I did have to make an Excel spreadsheet to keep this all straight. I had great fun. If you ever want a copy of it, it's the only way I could keep all this in my head. The 3 interior Hebrew letters are called the mother letters. Yes, and I would just draw diagrams, and it just really helped sort of implant in my head what was going on. They represent equilibrated forces and perfect harmony. Those are the 3 interior Hebrew letters. They form the basic elements from which all manifested creation originates: fire, air, and water. Earth is the combination of these 3. By traveling to the above face, which is flat at the top, as mentioned in part 4, we are on the return to God journey, represented by the gold key on the teacher card. The above face of the cube is called the path of the master of light. So with our arrival on the top of the cube of space called above, we will look a little closer at the attributes of each of the Hebrew letters that we find there. The below face, which we'll cover in part 6, is the path of the master of darkness. The high priestess resides there. The experience of above is the attainment of the height of all spiritual knowledge, wisdom and understanding while still in a human body. So I repeat, the below face, which we'll cover in part 6, is the path of the master of darkness, and the high priestess resides there. The experience of above is the attainment of the height of all spiritual knowledge, wisdom and understanding while still in a human body. We begin our adventure of above at the lovers. The Hebrew letter attributed to the lovers card is Zain. It represents the sword of discrimination, the power to perceive differences. If you can't tell the difference, you get what you get. This power is at the root of self-consciousness. Recognize what's in your life. Reorganize what's in your life if necessary. Nature is wonderful for this. You can just sit and watch a plant. Sometimes I'll sit and look out the window and say, my husband will go, well, so what are you doing? I'm watching the grass grow. And then quiet, I'm just watching the grass grow. I'm just watching the grass is growing. Allow yourself space to be with creation. And imagination is just, it will deliver all sorts of information to you doing the most simple things with it. So this power is at the root of self-consciousness. It is only with the self-conscious mind that things are perceived as many apparently unrelated parts rather than as a single entity. This power makes things and conditions seem to be real in and of themselves, and that's all you see is all there is. The one reality behind them is veiled. Their unified connection is also veiled. Remember the reversal of the hanged man. The doctrine here is that all such reflections that are changeable and impermanent are illusions, and in the absolute sense, they're unreal. And yet, this power of being able to perceive differences, that is to create illusions, is a fundamental necessity in order that individual self-consciousness may be manifested. We got tricked on this one, didn't we? We have to have it all. The power of being able to perceive differences, that is, to create illusions, is a fundamental necessity in order that individual self-consciousness may be manifested. Otherwise, all would be undifferentiated substance, unperceived by anyone, in effect, without existence, having substance only, subsistence only. You will avoid any confusion that you may be experiencing right now if you remember. Manifestation is simply the way the one identity appears to itself. The instrument of its self-perception is the faculty of the self-conscious mind in humans. This semblance of division are the two natures of the one. The nature that directs is the magician, found at the center of above, and the recipient nature that creates is the high priestess, found at the center of below, and they are equally important. This ability to discriminate is most valuable when man can perceive the difference between the real and the unreal. He moves from the dream of outer sense to the inner knowledge of his true nature. His inner spiritual senses are fully active. He sees all is connected while living in a world of amazing diversity. He realizes that to make any change in his body and his environment, that change must be made by his conscious awareness of within. Everything is mind. You're just moving mind around. You're taking mind and you're making, like, if you have a log of wood and you ignite it, it becomes smoke and fire. It doesn't go anywhere. It's just a different object or non-object anymore. It's just all mind, which means, yeah, you probably could fly that 747 with your mind. Yes. Or even without it, you could just fly. He moves from the dream of outer sense to the inner knowledge of his true nature. His inner spiritual senses are fully active. He sees all as connected while living in a world of amazing diversity. He realizes that to make any change in his body and his environment, that change must be made by his conscious awareness of within. All changes come from source, from inside you. All of this is manifestation. The change is at a higher level. Here he functions as the magician, acknowledging his source of power comes from within. He's holding his hand up, acknowledging that. Not the outer sense based on reality, and thereby creates a new world around himself. How this new world manifests is taken care of by the high priestess. The Lover's card is numbered 6, representing reciprocation. The magician and the high priestess work together and creation is made manifest. Reciprocation is a relationship between various parts of an organism. They are both within you. When you fully understand this and reflect this in every cell of your body, you become a master of light. Our next stop is the star. There we are, over here. Ah, there she is, lovely. The Hebrew letter Zadi, attributed to the star card, means fish hook. A fish hook on this card is the designation or agency used to solve problems. It is also a means for discovering secrets and receive revelation. This fish hook is a symbol for meditation. Patanjali defines meditation as an unbroken flow of knowledge in a particular object. Again, an unbroken flow of knowledge in a particular object. On the website here, we have what's called an orange exercise, and that's like a practice. The orange will tell you all sorts of things about creation if you just stare at it, so you can try that out. The card's number 17 consists of two digits, 1 and 7. So there's the little number. The power expressed is number 7, and the number 1 is the agency through which that power is manifested. Because in Hebrew, you go from right to left when you read the numbers. So it's 7 manifesting through 1. The power expressed is the number 7, and number 1 is the agency through which that power is manifested. In tarot, the number 7 refers to the chariot. We were just there, meaning that the receptivity that is indispensable for success in meditation. Remember, personality is a vehicle for the life force. All you little personalities, each and every one of you, a vehicle for the life force. Mankind is the transformer of his environment, but only according to his perception of reality. You can change anything if you can see it. We now move on to temperance. The Hebrew letter Samki, attributed to the temperance card, means verification as both a verb and a noun. Okay, you guys are getting used to me. It's called the proof is in the pudding. Always using that. Theories must be established and supported by application. Does the pudding taste good, or should we make it again? The number of this card is 14, meaning reason number 4, expressed through the agency of concentration number 1. The verification of hypotheses arrived at by the use of reason is carried out by means of concentration. The digits of 14 add to 5, the number of the teacher card. Therefore, the goal of verification is reached by carefully following the instruction given by the still small voice of intuition. Not because your neighbor said it so, or you figured it out, or you came to some conclusion. No, you hear the still small voice of intuition comes through. And you can, when you get in the habit of turning to it, it gets in the habit of being loud enough so you can hear it. I was in the house today and I was going, what is that smell? And I'm, what? Oh my God. I'm sitting in my office and I'm going, that smell was here about a month ago. How come it's back? And I put Clorox in the shower next to you in the bathroom. And I'm like, what? Okay. So I go get the Clorox and I pour it down and I run hot water and all the rest and it's gone. And I went, oh, good. So I'm telling this to my husband and he's looking at me and go, hey, got to go with what you hear. And it's gone. I was clueless. I want you to know. I was just sitting here going, it really smells. Go get put Clorox in the drain. It gets easy, it gets easier on God when we listen. And then, of course, for the rest of us, it just gets easier for life. I now don't have to smell that smell. I had no idea. Didn't even occur to me. The door was closed. Where was it coming from? Our next stop is strength. The Hebrew letter Teth, attributed to the strength card, means snake. It is one of the most important symbols used in occultism, the great magical agent. Snake. This is a force that is used every day by everyone. It is the conscious agency that takes form as all created things. In human personality, it is called Kundalini, the serpent fire. Learning to control this fire is part of the daily work of every student of the ageless wisdom. It is the intelligence of the secret works. Works here means wages or reward. Make certain that what you do results in the desired result. The world is the disguise of this one thing, spirit. I mean, she's got her arms around this lion. He's looking pretty ferocious, and the two of them look incredibly relaxed and at ease. That's how your life should be, relaxed and at ease. with all that power. And it's surrounded by a wreath of roses and leaves. And they stand on the ground that's green, which represents love and Venus. The number of this card is 8, which represents endless activity, rhythm, and vibration that's going around and around and around. The motion of the magical agent is serpentine. These are also the lines of the serpent power in the human body going up the spine. In Christian occultism, 8 is a symbol of the Holy Spirit. 8 is a symbol of the ancient doctrine that all opposites are effects of a single cause. A balanced reciprocal relationship between opposites results in harmonious activity. Let's move on to the magician at the center. The Hebrew letter attributed to the magician card is Beth. It means house or a definite location used as an abode. Here, it means a dwelling place for spirit and refers to the human personality. Ah, my little personalities, you are the dwelling place of spirit. This isn't abstract. Think of your personality as a center of expression for your own inner self. Jesus said, "The Father who dwells within me, he does the works." The teacher becomes the master and realizes the full power found at the 4 edges of the cube that we've just covered. Then, by channeling the power of light, as in the magician card, the master's word has the power to change the world. Beth is a double letter. It is pronounced 2 ways. Its double letter meaning is life and death, and is assigned to the planet Mercury. The lower rates of the Mercury vibration, which limit our mentality to intellect, make our interpretation of sensation faulty and cause us to think of ourselves as mortals condemned to die at some unseen time in the future. Sublimated, redirected, and purified, this same Mercury vibration brings superconsciousness, which includes the certainty of immortality. Sublimated, redirected, and purified, this same Mercury vibration brings superconsciousness, which includes the certainty of immortality. This is the death of the false conception of personality, that underlying premise that we grow up in on the planet Earth and need to step away from. And this is the birth of the full realization of eternal life. You are the master of light. Enjoy it. Yeah, what fun. And it's all in these little pictures. How sweet. And what's wonderful about the being in pictures is that all your little intellectual minds that think, this can't be right, this can't be right, it's heading right through into your subconscious mind when you look at the picture. That's why it's this way. Imagination takes over, and the next thing you know, gee, how did I get to the point where I can heal things with my hands, fly, do all these wonderful things. So there you are. We did run over a few minutes, but then I went a little fast, sorry. I think that this is a lot of fun.
Yes.
It's a lot of fun because it opens up your imagination and it opens up the love within yourself for your fellow man and for yourself. And it helps us to train ourselves to look at the world, ourselves, and our activities objectively. So we may think something's going on, but then when you're in the midst of something, go, oh, what's really going on here? What are we really doing? Just step back. I'm making cookies. What am I doing? Just, I'm going down the street. What am I doing? The whole world is a mystery that wants to reveal itself to you every single second. Just delightful. Just, we open up ourselves to it and clump. Creation's like, oh, here, you have that problem, go there, go there in that other room, and it'll be fixed. Okay, that's interesting. I'm hearing voices to go in the other room. It's an interesting way to live, I will tell you. So on that note, this has been delightful. Glad you all came.
Thank you, Margot. Thank you.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank
I'm
you.
so glad you attended. It's
Thank
my
you.
pleasure. Next week we'll be on the last one, and everybody take a good look at Eli, because Eli over there is going to be teaching us some more detail in some of these classes. You have had a taste. You have put your little toe in at the shallow end of the pool, and Eli is going to walk you across the water to a little more deeper end of the pool and give you a better idea of how these cards interact and the energy that goes between them in a moment.
It's going to be
But using
awesome.
this, okay, using the same link.
Oh yeah,
Oh, good.
yeah. Everything will be Monday evening, same link. He'll have his own Zoom. So you go in, if you've been keeping a Zoom link someplace and you hit it, you'll get me, which won't get you anywhere once he's,
Okay.
but I'll so you have to go through the site at least once to get his link. And
Okay,
then
great.
we'll see how it goes. And I think it'll go really well. He's been doing this 30 years. So, and you were saying, Eli.
I was just gonna say it'll be a lot of fun, and I think everyone will have a great time. And the only thing I want to say is when we're exposed to these things, like you're like, this is the shallow end, and I can hear everyone saying this is the shallow end. So that's good, because what tarot does is it's supposed to overwhelm the intellect. Okay, it's supposed to. So if you feel overwhelmed at all, that's a very good sign, and just stick with it.
That's
all I'll
about
say.
being comfortable in the unknown, right?
100%. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
Well, thanks. Thank you.
Well,
Yeah,
I look
thanks.
forward. I will be teaching next week, and the week after that, Eli will begin. So, and
Thanks, Margot.
there'll be a different name. I mean, it'll be tarot, but it'll be a different name on the class. He's already given that to me. So, but he and I are going to be talking about, putting that in. So as soon as you see the new name, but it'll say the word tarot. But there we go. I think he told me that I wrote it down.
Thank you.
Thank
What
you,
do you
Margaret.
like?
Thank you, Margot. And
Bye
Tracy's
bye,
there. Tracy
everyone.
said hi.
Take care.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.